Well, good afternoon. I want to welcome you on behalf of the WDC Board of Directors to our 4th annual lecture, and this year it's a luncheon, and so hopefully you're enjoying yourselves today in this great venue. We'll be talking about that more in just a moment, but we'd like to first start out just saying welcome to Mayor Kirk Humphreys. Mayor, we're so thrilled that you're here with us today. Blair, we're extremely proud that you're here with us as well. Blair is the mayor's son, and he actually is the executive director of the Institute of Quality for Quality Communities at OU University. And Blair this afternoon is going to be having a conversation with some of our design community over at the Design and Innovation Center. So Blair, welcome to you as well to the city of Wichita. Let's give him a round of applause for coming up. When the staff was talking about what venue to have this in today, they narrowed in and really working with Michael Ramsey and Dr. Iser to say, this is the venue. We are a city under major transformation right now. You just walk outside the doors of this facility, and almost everywhere you look, there is construction. And soon to be, there's going to be new construction as far as new residential coming from the ground up. And I think that's always a tremendous benchmark when you start to see that type of activity in our downtown. And looking at that theme, if you will, we're literally in a space under transformation today. And so Dr. Eisner, Michael, thank you for letting us be here today. Hopefully you saw some of the transformation, what it's going to look like once it's done. I encourage you, if you didn't get to see all the computer screens coming in or the television screens, look at that, because this building is really going to be quite remarkable as part of an anchor in our downtown. So again, we really appreciate the availability to be here today in this venue. Also, as we get started, we have a number of elected officials here today, so we certainly want to recognize each individual. We have Mayor Brewer right here in front. So Mayor, thank you for being here today. We have the Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor Janet Miller is here as well. Let's give Janet a round of applause. Councilwoman Lavonta Williams. Lavonta, thank you for being here. Councilman Jeff Longwell. Jeff is right here too. Councilman Pete Meitzner. Councilman James Clendenin. And I believe that Michael is here as well. Councilman O'Donnell, I was told he was here. Maybe there he is. Michael, congratulations on your race. He's going to be a state senator very soon. We also have Representative Paula Davis here today, so we want to represent the representative. Thank you for being here as well today. We also have City Manager Bob Layton here in the front, as well as County Manager Bill Buchanan. So, gentlemen, thank you for being here. Today's event is being made possible through a number of sponsors, and that's part of, I think, the foundation of the partnerships that we see emerging over and over again to move our downtown forward. And today we have some great partners with us here as well. Certainly the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation have just been a cornerstone, if you will, to what's been happening with our organization and working with the Chamber, young professionals, Visioneering Wichita. And we're very pleased to be able to say that today we actually have a Miami representative, and that is Bahia Ramos-Sanat. And Bahia, thank you for coming all the way from Miami. Appreciate you coming back up to Wichita. And I negated to recognize someone who's been very important to this community. That's Commissioner Unruh. Dave, forgive me. Thank you for being here today as well. The other sponsors that we want to make sure we note, Intrust Bank, Emprise Bank, the law offices of Morris, Lang, Evans, Brox, and Kennedy, Height, Fanning, and Honeyman, Schaefer, Johnson, Cox, Fry Architecture, and then some individuals also helped us, John Belford, Tom Docking, Jim Faith, and Monty Briley. So to each of those corporations and individuals, thank you for your support today. As far as location sponsors, we want to certainly again recognize the Lux, Kent AV, they have done a great job in just transformation of this space today into all the technology that you see today. Lifeboat Creative, they are responsible for a lot of the images that you see about what this building will look like. And then Farhall Construction did a great job, if you will, of getting this space demoed so that we could actually be in it today. So to each of those, we want to give our appreciation as well. One of the things we want to be able to note today, too, is that this year actually marks the 10th anniversary of the Wichita Downtown Development Corporation. 10 years ago, there was a group of business people in the downtown area that got together and working with the elected. In fact, Joan Cole was a big part of that, and Joan's right over here to my right. So Joan is a huge player in making all this happen. Really began to make the WDDC work. And for the last 10 years, we've been about the business of really working with the public and private sector to move our downtown forward. On the tables today, you actually have a document that we put together, Jamie on our staff put together, that really begins to give you a timeline, if you will, of the last 10 years. And certainly we couldn't highlight everything, but you'll see some benchmark moments, if you will, the last 10 years. We're real pleased about the next 10 years that are coming because we feel like there's going to be a dynamic story to tell once again in the years to come. So take that with you. We hope you'll find it very informative. And again, just to kind of give you an oversight of what's been happening in our downtown. And these initiatives would not happen without you in this room. I think probably almost everybody in this room has had, in some point or time, touched our downtown in a way of moving it forward. So again, thank you for your partnership in making these things happen. We also want to make sure that we recognize leadership. As you know, you do not get to places like this without having really key leadership in place, and our board has been one that has been in that position. We have a number of our chairs. In fact, all of our chairs that have served in this capacity are here today. And I'll start with the current chair. Tom Docking is right here to my left, so Tom is here. We also have Dick Honeyman, who is our immediate past chair. Our chair-elect is Gary Schmidt, right here in the front center. And then those starting at the very beginning, I just want to mention them as well. Harvey Swanson. Harvey, glad you're here today. Clay Bastian, thank you, sir. Joe Johnson, and then also Larry Weber. These individuals have just given a lot of their time. In fact, they will tell you if they've been chairman during the time I've been here, they receive, literally, there's no better word, a plethora of emails about things going on, how we want to approach things, how do we continue to move things forward. So, gentlemen, thank you for your service to the organization. Would also make sure we want to recognize those who serve on the board and those who are serving currently, and then also you may have served in the past. So if you would, just please stand just for a moment. Again, anyone who has served on that is current or has served on the WDDC board, if you would just stand for us, please. Thank you. The last acknowledgement I want to make, but certainly not the least, is that our staff, they work tirelessly to make a lot of these things happen. This is our first luncheon, so we appreciate your patience with us if things kind of didn't go quite as well as we had hoped, but I think it really did come together. And so again, they work tirelessly to make it happen, and that's Jason Gregory. They're all standing in the back here, as I would expect that they would be, making sure nothing needs to be done. Jason Gregory, Jamie Zellner, Nancy Moore, Robin, and I know, is Ann here? Ann Kiefer. Did she make it today? Ann just went to go work for Wichita Festivals, but Ann was really a part of making this happen today as well. So if you'd give them a hand of applause, I'd appreciate that. Well, today, I have the honor of introducing our mayor, who's going to be saying a few words here in a moment. And our mayor's passion for downtown in this community is very evident. If you've heard the mayor speak, and everyone has in this room, he talks passionately about the future of this city, the vision that he has. And in fact, Project Downtown was one of those things that early on when we met, even before I made the decision to come to Wichita, he said, we have got to get this going. And so he's a mayor that does understand vision. He understands leadership. He continually challenges us, if you will, to pursue initiatives that enhance the development of our city so that we are a distinctive city. A city that strives around the quality of place, quality of talent, and importantly, a city that provides quality of opportunities for all those who live here. Mayor, we thank you for your vision and your leadership. We thank you for your partnership in developing our downtown. Please join me now in welcoming our mayor, Mayor Carl Brewer.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Well, I've given a little small note of some things that I was supposed to have done before I started speaking. And everyone, you know how I am when I become passionate about something. I can talk about it all day. But where's Don Sherman? Well, since he left, I'll go ahead and share with you. He told me, he said, Mayor, are you speaking? I said, yes. You're talking about downtown? I said, yes. He said, make it short. I said, well, Don, I have a lot to say. And he says, don't forget, I'm West Star. You will be short. So, to make sure that we keep the power on, I'm going to do everything in my power to make it short. And if I become passionate, someone just wave at me. You know, first of all, I'd like to thank Jeff for inviting everyone and allowing us to be able to be here today. And I have to say, it's really great to be inside of a place undergoing a renovation like this. And I say thank you to Lux for hosting us today and giving us a glimpse of what it will look like. And it's very impressive. Mayor Humphreys, let me add my public welcome to you to the city of Wichita. And we're glad to have you here today as our special guest, as someone who has a remarkable public service record in addition to many, many, many success stories. Your great business career, and we're looking forward to learning more. Not too long ago, myself, Councilmember Meichner, and Councilmember Clendenin had an opportunity to visit your city. And I know that we use your city as a model as we talk about where we would like to be. But really, we had not paid any attention, and we had an opportunity to go see that. And I tell you, it has been a nightmare trying to control these two guys since they've been there and explained exactly how things actually happened. And they were coming back and said, okay, Mayor, we have to do this. We have to do this. Hold on. We have to have a plan first. But we had an opportunity to see your city and learn how the things that and how you actually did it and how you had to grow. But the interesting thing is that city was identical to the city of Wichita many years ago. Each and every one of us know that today is an opportunity for us to celebrate and to recognize our own ongoing transformations of downtown Wichita. We know that any economically strong city in any economically strong region has a strong downtown. Oklahoma City recognized this. So did we. With great credit and thanks to a lot of people, many of them who are in this room with us today, we have our own story. The beginning of our story started years ago, and now we're reaping the rewards for that effort with a nationally recognized Old Town. And it's hard to remember or even believe today, but 20 years ago, our Old Town was a collection of mostly run-down warehouse buildings. Business leadership started a movement from Wichita Downtown Development Corporation, and in 10 years ago, it was officially launched. And that helped us start our story, and our story is continuing to grow and to get stronger. 10 years ago, we officially launched, and that has helped our story. And with more residential living and more office space under development, more investors and their private sector investments, and belief and vision. Today, the private sector are investing millions each year. And based on the master plan project, downtown as a public sector, we support them by unlocking the potential with public sector investments in things like public parking garages. Thanks to the vision of the private sector developers, we're now sitting in one of those exciting developments. And 2 blocks away, there is a full city block and an entire complete city block undergoing its own transformation. And that in itself is among the part of an amazing chapter in our own story. And we look forward to each part of one block opening. As a city, we're known for downplaying our successes. Today, let's celebrate. We have a great beginning in our story, and we're in the middle of the story. Now, one that will end with a vibrant transformation of our downtown. I personally want to thank each and every one of you for your countless hours and your investment here in our downtown area and also in our city. But that investment just doesn't stop with what you're doing actually here. This is an investment for the entire state of Kansas, for this entire region. This is the heart and soul of this region from border to border. And so that investment that you're making is changing the lives of a lot of communities. So I thank you so very much for your help and your support. And I know the City Council thank you for your help and your support doing that. And let's continue to work in pulling together to be able to make our city the greatest city that it can possibly be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. It's now my privilege to be able to introduce our current chair, Tom Docking, who will be introducing Mayor Kirk Humphreys. Tom actually served as the chairman of the inaugural annual event that we put on about 4 years ago now, and that was when Alex Garvin, we were over at the Scottish Rite, many of you were there, and it was a great evening where Alex talked about making sure your master plan has your fingerprints on it. And I'm glad to say that 3.5 years later, we can say that we have that document, and that document is alive and well. It's serving as a great blueprint. Tom, along with the other executive committee members, Gary Schmidt, Jim Faith, Dick Hyman, have provided a lot of input to making today possible. So, gentlemen, thank you for that. So at this time, Tom, I'd like to welcome you to the platform to introduce Mayor Kirk Humphreys. Please help me in welcoming Tom Docking.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be here. I just want to echo what others have said about the spectacular history of this building and how gorgeous it is going to be when it's done. KG&E knew how to build buildings back in the 50s, and I think we're going to see the product of a wonderful restoration here. Looking forward to it. I've had a chance to visit on a couple of occasions now with Mayor Humphreys of Oklahoma City, and I this morning met his son Blair, both very impressive people. And my job today in introducing Mayor Humphreys includes a bit of background about him. He's an Oklahoma native, Oklahoma City, OU graduate, lots of ties to Kansas. He's had business and personal ties through Wichita, Salina, Emporia, Goddard, lots of different places. He's very familiar with South Central Kansas and has done real estate and other business deals in the entire region. He is a successful businessman, real estate developer, deal maker, and probably most famous for which was his 2 terms as mayor of Oklahoma City, where he helped to guide what is called their MAPS program, which has become a template for what medium-sized cities can really accomplish with downtown and regional economic development projects. Among others, they've had different versions of maps that they've done. One was a children's maps that was see if I got my figures right, a $690 million children's and education project. This man is full of ideas. Mayor Humphreys, we're delighted to have you to Wichita, and please join me in welcoming Mayor Humphreys.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. It's great to be with you. And Mr. Mayor, we're honored to have you with us. It's great to be in Wichita. I've seen a few old friends today. I don't know if you know Barbie Job is with your chamber, and she's an Oklahoma girl. We have her on short-term loan to Kansas, but we hope she comes back. And then Mark Nichols with Coke is a good friend from Oklahoma City. He moved up here a few years ago. They snagged him up here. Once he gets Coke straightened out, we'll get him back in Oklahoma. Charlie Chandler, I've known Charlie for years through some common interests we have with a group called the Navigators out in Colorado. And then years ago when I was mayor, I flew up here with a developer to try to talk Bill Warren into coming to Oklahoma City. And Bill told me he was going to run for mayor of Wichita. And I said, Bill, I've known you for 2 hours and I don't think that's a good idea. And so now Bill controls the theater business in central Oklahoma. He has a theater in Moore. We didn't get him downtown. We were trying to get him in Bricktown. But he has a theater in Moore that I went to last week. And it's a fabulous, fabulous facility and fabulous operation. And I won't spill the beans, but they sell far more theater tickets there than whoever's in second place. And so, Bill, it's always great to see you. And thanks for doing a great job in the theater business. And also, thanks for not running for mayor again. I brought Blair with me. Blair, we learn from our children. And Blair has a master's in urban design from MIT. And I got into the real estate business. I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. But I got into the real estate business primarily as a financial exercise. And over time, I became convinced that how we do land development and how we reuse properties has a lot to do with quality of life of people. It has everything to do with it. And I really learned that more than anywhere else from my two sons. And so when they called me and said, would you come up here? I said, yeah, I'll come, but I want to bring my son. And so some of you are going to spend some time with Blair today. And he runs the Institute for Quality Communities at the University of Oklahoma. He's an assistant professor in urban design there in the School of Architecture. But they help cities and towns all over Oklahoma know how to build out in the right way, how to build out in a way that enhances community and makes our towns and cities places we want to live and our kids want to live and enjoy being, not just living, but have a great quality life. So I'm great to have Blair with me. On your table you have a ruler that says Measuring Our Progress. And I drove Blair into town last night, and it's first time. You ever been to Wichita?
Been to Wichita. Never soaked it in.
Yeah. First time had driven around and looked at it. And I think it's fair to say he was blown away by what he saw that's happening right in Wichita. And, we're still at the point in Oklahoma City where last week, I think a week or two ago, the New York Times had a long article on have you heard of Kevin Durant? And I think he's been here. But New York Times had this big article about the Thunder and Kevin Durant and Oklahoma City and what's going on in our city. And we're still kind of like, we're kind of like gee whiz about that, One of your business publications had an article a few days ago about Oklahoma City and Wichita's. It was kind of like, we're doing pretty good in Wichita and Oklahoma City is doing great, And we're kind of just amazed by that because it wasn't many years ago, just a little over 20 years ago, when a city council meeting, one of our city councilmen said, downtown is dead and we killed it. That was Oklahoma City in 1989. And he was right on both counts. So I want to tell you a story of what we've done in Oklahoma City. I want to preface this by saying a little personal deal. My dad was an entrepreneur and struggled in business, and finally, in the mid-'60s, he got making some money and paid off his debts. And at one point, he went to his best friend, who was a developer in Oklahoma City, and said, Gene, loan me $100,000. And Gene said, what for? He says, well, I've got the stock market figured out, and I'll pay you 10% interest or half the profits, whichever is greater. And Gene said, I'll think about it. And Gene went to my mother and said, your husband is a gambler and a promoter. He's going to go broke. And before he goes broke, I'm going to put him in some real estate so that you and the kids will have some grocery money after he goes broke. And at that time, there was a fellow in Emporia, Kansas named Bill Brom. And Bill Brom had sold out in Kansas. He was moving his operation to Oklahoma. In 1967, he opened 25 stores in Oklahoma City. And Dad and Gene owned 13 of those stores. They were build-to-suits. They were landlords for Brom. Brom owned the rest. And those were the stores that my dad was put into. And that was the first commercial real estate we owned. About the same time, there was a fellow here in Wichita named Ford Madison. I don't know if anyone in the room remembers Ford Madison. This goes way back. But he had a little chain of convenience stores called Shoppies. And Shoppies was the predecessor to Quick Trip. And they were a competitor with Quick Trip, and about 71, 72, Quick Trip bought out Shoppies. Well, Dad went to Gene and said, hey, let me buy into that Shoppies thing. And Gene said, no, I think I can take care of it. And he did that for a couple of years until Shoppies was still continuing to hemorrhage cash. And so he said, come on, Jack, I'll let you in. And Dad said, well, I'll get in if you let me in on the real estate. And so in the late 60s, they built 32 convenience stores here in the Wichita market, Wichita, Derby, Emporia, McPherson. And so Dad and his partners owned the real estate. And so when Quick Trip bought them out, we became Quick Trip landlords, and we're one of their larger landlords. The reason I can fiddle around with stuff like politics is because of Quick Trip. Okay, that's the equation. We, to this day, we're their second largest landlord. I hate to say it, I own Quick Trips in Wichita I've never laid eyes on, but I do get the rent check every month. So that's our history with Wichita. The first commercial real estate I ever owned, Charlie, were about a dozen buildings my dad didn't want to fiddle with anymore here in Wichita. South Hydraulic and streets like that. So I got rid of those as quickly as I could too. They were little slivers that weren't very good. But so we're in the commercial real estate business. I want to tell you the story today about Oklahoma City and the transformation we've been through. As much as we're on people's radar screen now, it wasn't that many years ago that we were really dead in the water. And so I want to tell you how MAPS changed Oklahoma City. MAPS stands for Metropolitan Area Projects. And in 1991, what happened was my predecessor as mayor, a man named Ron Norick, tried to get United Airlines to come to Oklahoma City with a maintenance facility. In those days, we were chasing every economic development deal in the country, and we always wound up second or third. We never, we were always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And with United in 91, we went to our voters and said, would you please, would you please approve a $100 million sales tax, countywide sales tax, and we offered United $100 million if they'd come to Oklahoma City. And they turned us down. And Mayor Norick called the chairman of United and he said, why did you turn us down? I thought we had the better offer. And he said, well, you had the better financial officer, but you don't have the quality of life we want for our people. And so Mayor Norick went to Indianapolis, the city that won. He saw downtown where people were living there, shopping there, working there. The arts were alive. They had a canal downtown. The river went through downtown. They had sports arenas. They had it going downtown. And he came back to Oklahoma City and said, we have some work to do because downtown was dead and we killed it. And so Mayor Norick got some folks together and said, if we could change, instead of paying people to come here, why don't we invest in ourselves? And if you could make a list of what you'd like to see happen in our city, what would it be? And they made a wish list. And then they said, well, how much money can we raise? And they decided to pay for it with a 5-year, 1-penny sales tax. And our people love a sales tax because they view it as volitional. If you don't want to spend the money, just don't shop. It's not like property tax. They hate property tax. They love sales tax. Older people like a sales tax. They don't view that as raising their cost of living without a choice. And also on a sales tax, about 30% of the people that pay sales tax in Oklahoma City come from Wichita or someplace else, and we like that. So about 30% of it's from people outside the city. And so we think we're pulling something over on somebody. And so they said, okay, we can do 9 projects. And I'm going to tell you today about the lessons from MAPS. And I think these lessons are universal. First, you need to address a pressing need. There's a tendency for us as elected officials to try to curry favor with voters, and we wind up with a grab bag of a public works project because we're trying to give everybody a little something. But you got to scratch where people are itching. You got to address the pressing need. We had a downtown that was dead, and so we built 9 projects, included a new library. We totally renovated our music hall. We expanded our convention center. We moved our AAA baseball facility from an old, decrepit facility outside of downtown at the fairgrounds, and we put it right in the middle of downtown in Bricktown. We built a canal through Bricktown. We put dams on the river, so it saved us the mowing expense of having to mow the river 3 times a year. 9 projects, all capital projects, $363 million paid for with a 5-year 1 penny sales tax. But you have to address the pressing need. If you don't scratch where they're itching, they're not going to like it. Secondly, you've got to have unity. That means unity among the mayor and council. If you have a divided mayor and council or a divided council, you'll never get anything done. And not only unity there has to be unity between your political leadership and your business leadership. In Oklahoma City, nothing happens if it doesn't go through the Chamber of Commerce, literally. The Chamber is where a lot of good ideas start. MAPS started as an idea at a Chamber board retreat where they're saying, what are we going to do to fix our city? The Chamber thought of the idea, went and sold Mayor Norick. Okay? So the idea of a good leader, Mr. Mayor, is figure out where they're going and get out ahead of them. That's a good leader, okay? And then in Oklahoma City, it's not just the political leadership, the business leadership, it's also the broader civic leadership. We got the symphony crowd voting to build a sports arena. And the hockey crowd voting to build a library. Of the 9 projects, only the library would have made it, would have been approved if it were freestanding. But we put them all on one ballot. You got to vote them all up or down, one vote. And so for the last 20 years, more than any other factor in Oklahoma City, we've had unified leadership. Does that mean I like everything that those jokers at City Hall do? No. But I like it enough. I like it more than having a divided city. And so, yeah, we'll have our battles behind the scenes, but when we get out front, we're unified on big issues. And our business leadership, our political leadership, and our broader civic leadership has been unified for the last 20 years. If there's one thing that has made the difference in our city, that's it. Third lesson is you've got to have a leader. And folks, in any city, it's this man right here. It's the mayor. As much as I like the councilman, as much as I like the city manager, and the county officials, the mayor. Because when you go vote, the calculation in your mind is, do I believe that person and do I trust him to deliver what he's promising? That's just the calculation. And so in our case, we had a mayor who was a 2-term mayor. His father had been a 2-term mayor. The Norick name in Oklahoma City was golden. And Mayor Norick, what happened was that he has to have political capital and he has to be willing to put it on the line. I don't know about wars in North Africa, but I know in city politics you do not lead from behind. The mayor has to lead. It's almost like follow me, boys. And what happened, the chamber came up with this idea. They did some polling back in 93. It was approved in December 93. And they decided it was too risky, and they said, Mayor Norick, why don't you run for re-election, and then we'll do this. And in a small meeting at the chamber with the leadership of the city, Mayor Norick pounded on the table and said, if you're not willing to run this, I'm not going to run for re-election because I'm not willing to be mayor of a city that won't try to move forward. That's leadership. That's one man saying, we're going to do this deal. And that's what it takes if you're going to succeed. Fourth is you've got to have a strategic focus. Like I say, there's a tendency to have a grab bag approach. And we see this in cities all over the place. We fight that tendency in Oklahoma City since maps, in subsequent maps. But you have to have enough that people can see there's benefit for them, but it has to have a strategic focus. And so it cannot be a little bit for everybody. It's got to have a central theme and a central focus. And then fifth, you've got to deliver what you promise. I'm going to quote Mac Brown here, who was quoting Darrell Royal. Darrell Royal is a great Oklahoman. You may not know that. Great Oklahoman, great player at the University of Oklahoma, died last week was known for coaching some minor league ball down south of the border. But anyway, he when they were interviewing Mac Brown to come coach at Texas, Darrell Royal was on the committee, and they talked about all the things the coach has to do in a big school like that. And Darrell Royal's comment says, "And you got to win all the damn games." Well, you know, in our business, Mayor Brewer and myself, you know, you're as good as your last ball game. And so you may build up trust over 20 or 30 years, but if you don't deliver what you promised this time, the voters are done with you. They're not going to approve your deal next time. So those are the 5 lessons from MAPS. Just to give you a history, here's Oklahoma City before MAPS. Early 80s, we had an oil bust, and I don't know how bad the 80s were here in Wichita. In Oklahoma City, it really was almost last man out, turn out the lights. We had a series of failed efforts to attract jobs to the town. I mentioned that. The United story, and then Indianapolis, the quality of life, and let's invest in ourselves. That was before MAPS. MAPS, 5-year 1 penny sales tax. There was no debt on MAPS. Never been any debt. And so we don't spend the money until the sales tax brings it in. We don't issue any bonds. And the voters like that. No debt. Pay as you go. When I ran for mayor 15 years ago, the spring of 1998, the biggest issue in that race was, what do we do about the downtown sports arena? MAPS at the time was controversial. It had been approved 4.5 years before. None of the projects had opened. One of the TV stations had a set that they do on their news show called MAPS Watch, and it was not let's watch how good it is. It's let's watch how screwed up this deal is. And we did some polling and asked, what's your greatest concern about life in Oklahoma City? And about 1 out of 4 people said MAPS. They thought it was just another boondoggle. And I took office, and we had to decide. In our race, my opponent said, well, let's put the sports arena on hold. And I said, no, we promised to build 9 projects. We got to build 9 projects. I believe that was the most important election in the history of Oklahoma City, and let me tell you why. And I got 68% of the vote in that. I believe the voters decided in that election, we are going to move forward. Always before, in Oklahoma City, there was a mindset, we had an inferiority complex. There was a mindset that if you wanted to do it right, you had to go to Dallas. I mean, if you wanted to take your wife to a great weekend, you went to Dallas. If she wanted to really shop, she went to Dallas. I mean, you know, it was like bigger than Dallas was the way to do it. We don't hear about Dallas anymore. It's not that Dallas isn't great, it's just that we kind of like ourselves now. And in that election in 1998, the voters said, no, let's finish MAPS. And so after I got in office, as a Republican, we're nonpartisan in our politics, but I'm a Republican. As a Republican, I said, let's extend this tax for 6 months, let's bring in $30 million more, and let's finish MAPS right. And 2/3 of the voters voted in favor of that. Because of that, we finished all the projects. We built the sports arena. Had we not done that, we wouldn't have built the sports arena. That sports arena is where a group called the Thunder plays. That's where the NBA Finals were last year. That's where the 3-time scoring championships locker is, Kevin Durant. No finished MAPS right, no Thunder. I think for $30 million we made a good decision. What do you think? So MAPS brought in $363 million. We built 9 projects. I'll walk you through the projects. On the upper left, this is the Bricktown Ballpark before MAPS. Pretty exciting. You would drive to Oklahoma City for that, wouldn't you? It was the parking lot for our Metro Transit bus fleet. And then here it is under construction. And here's the ballpark when it opened. And it literally changed the self-image of our city. For the first time, we thought, you know what, we can do this. We can do it right. And as silly as that sounds, that's what happened. Pardon me. In this picture here, back behind there is where Bass Pro Shops is now. In fact, Sonic Drive-In's national headquarters is here. The theater Bill Warren didn't take, the Harkins, is right over here. Still kind of sticks in my craw, Bill. Okay. We put a canal in Bricktown. We took California Avenue, was an old warehouse street, Brick Street. We took the street out, dug down 12 feet, put the canal down there below, and the canal is 4 foot deep, 1 mile long. And for 15 years now, people have been paying $5 to ride a 1 mile canal boat ride to nowhere, and they flock to it. About $500,000 a year, and this is the canal. That is the ballpark back there, and so this is the canal under construction. You see all these old warehouses. I think Hooters is somewhere in here right now. I've never been there. My wife tells me not to go. And so this view, upper left, is the canal, is California Avenue before. That's the convention center in the background. This is the same shot. In the lower right, there's the convention center, and that's the canal. That's the before and the after of California Avenue. Our music hall was built during the WPA days, the 1930s. And at one time, it was the only gathering place in town. If there was a rodeo in town, it was at the Municipal Auditorium. If there was a symphony concert, it was at the Municipal Auditorium. And with maps, we gutted the auditorium. This is today. It's a concert hall. It's great. But we totally gutted the auditorium. We dug down 12 feet to get the vertical volume that we needed to have more of a European-style concert hall. We moved the back wall in closer. We cut it from what one time had been 6,000 seats. It's now 2,400 seats. So it's a smaller, more intimate hall. And today, this is the concert hall. And then at the back, because we moved the back wall in, we wound up with a 5-story atrium, which is where you go out during intermission and things like that. It's the civic party place where you see folks, and it's just a great facility. So we built that new concert hall inside of the old envelope and preserved the historic building. If anyone here is in the parking business, I'm going to offend you now, so just, get ready. Parking lots are a killer to street life. Surface parking lots kill street life in cities. What brings life to streets is storefronts that you can see into, and people. That's what brings life to streets. And this is across the street from City Hall. Right over here is City Hall. This is before maps. Right here is where the library wanted to build, and Urban Renewal owned the land, and they said, well, gee whiz, we're making money renting that to park cars. Well, gee whiz, that's a high calling in civic life, isn't it? That surely builds a city. And I said, well, no, we're going to put the library there. So today the library is here, and right here is a $750 million building called the Devon Tower today. So it's changed the face of downtown Oklahoma City, and this is the library up here. Devon Tower is not there in this photograph, but it's there today, and that's the library. This is our convention center before maps. It was built about 1970, and it's kind of a jack-of-all-trades building. It's convention and exhibit space and a sports arena inside of it, our old sports arena. Kind of a mugwump building. But boy, doesn't that make you proud? I mean, just gee whiz. So we added on to the outside of it. We're going to tear that one down now. This is the before of the convention center, and that's the after. And that's the one we're going to tear down now, build a new one. Chesapeake Arena that was the sports arena that the Finish Maps Right tax gave the funds to finish, and $90 million, not terribly expensive. We went back and spent about another $100 million just in the last year or two to add some space and bring up the level of finish. And because of that, when Katrina happened, New Orleans was looking for a place to come, and they spent 2 years with us, and today we have the Thunder, which, by the way, ESPN magazine picked as the #1 professional sports franchise in the world last year. Number 2 is the Green Bay Packers. Not bad. So it's a new identity for our city. Now, you go anywhere in the world, and they know Kevin Durant, and they know OKC. No one even cared that we existed before. This is our river before. The Corps of Engineers straightened out our river so it wouldn't flood, and it didn't do much else either. And we put 3 low water dams on the river and locks, and today the U.S. Olympic rowing team lives in Oklahoma City and trains on our river. So it's an amazing transformation. Spin-off from MAPS, new corporate headquarters and employment downtown. Devon Tower, $750 million, just opened last month. When we were going to the announcement to the groundbreaking for the Devon Tower, we were walking down there, and my wife said, "You know, I bet you if we'd not done MAPS, this would be in Edmond. Edmond's our affluent suburb to the north." And I said, "No, it'd be in Houston." And I saw the CEO of Devon when we got down there and told him that. He goes, "Oh, yeah." He says, if this had not been built, then I couldn't have kept the company here. We couldn't attract the people. If we had not done MAPS, we couldn't attract the people that we need to run our business. And so more corporate headquarters. Downtown is a destination. If you live anywhere in central Oklahoma, downtown Oklahoma City is your playground. It's your living room. It's where you go for fun and recreation and to have a nice evening with your friends or family. We've invested in our historic assets. The Skirvin Hotel was our grand old hotel. It had closed in 1989. It was vacant for about 15 years, boarded up, a home to pigeons, the roof leaked. This great architectural masterpiece, and it really loomed as a symbol of failure in our city, right in the heart of downtown. And so one day I said, you know, if we can't do the Skirvin now, we can never do it. And so I said, you know, maybe we ought to consider some kind of a dedicated tax for the Skirvin. And, you know, we've got to talk about what's the public's job and what's the private sector's job. And the public sector basically, I believe, is in the infrastructure business. It's the city's job to make sure that public right-of-way is done right. The street, the parking, the sidewalk, the street trees, all of the utilities, that's the public's job. It's the public's job to create a framework where private developers are willing to come in and take the risk to do the private development on the private side of that line. By and large, when the public strays over onto the private side and says, oh, we got to make this happen, it's a mistake. So my belief is the public sector is to create a framework where the private sector is willing to take the risk to make it happen. But it's not the public's job to make it happen. It's just create an atmosphere where it can happen. Occasionally, there's things that need to happen that aren't going to happen without the public's involvement. We had that with the Skirvin. The Skirvin would not happen without a sizable, multi-million-dollar public participation. So as mayor, I led the city to buy the property, get it under control. We went out for requests for proposals. It wound up being a $56 million redevelopment, of which $22 million is public funds. And we have a clawback in it to where we get back all of our money and a return on our money. And right now it's been open 4 or 5 years and we're ahead of schedule. So there's times when there's something that needs to take place, it's in the public interest that it take place, and it will not take place without public participation. And that's the hard line. Where do you fall on that line? It's a tough deal. Oklahoma River, I've talked about that. Here's the MAPS projects, total of 360. This is the return on investment. We spent $363 million on MAPS. Since then, there's been another almost $4 billion of outside investment in downtown because of MAPS. New hotels, new housing, new office, public and cultural and medical facilities, over $4 billion. And I talked about delivering what you promised. They told us that if we would do MAPS, we'd see $200 million in outside investment come in. And we've seen $4 billion. I think we over-delivered with MAPS. By the way, the last time the Chamber, 54% of the voters approved MAPS in 1993. The last time the Chamber did a poll and said, do you think MAPS has been good for Oklahoma City? 98% said yes. And so we're looking for that 46% that voted against it. They've disappeared from the radar screen. When I was mayor, we led with Maps for Kids. Maps for Kids basically said, we have a city of metro area of 1.25 million, but in my city, the urban school district is struggling, and anyone who can get out gets out. And this has been going on for 3 decades at the time. And that urban district was so far behind the power curve with failure to pass bond issues, things of that nature, that they could never catch up. And so we said, you know what, we don't own the schools, we're not responsible for the schools, but when Mama moves to Edmond and her sales tax moves to Edmond, pretty soon we're left with a dead city downtown. And so we believed that we had a vital public interest in helping the school district get back on its feet. So we got a 7-year 1 penny sales tax coupled with a school bond issue, total $690 million. And we either built new or totally renovated every building in the Oklahoma City School District. 23 suburban districts. In our city, we have 24, count them, 24 independent school districts. And all 24 school districts approved the proposal and encouraged their voters to support it. And it was approved by about over 60% of the vote. It took us 3 years to put that together. We started with about a dozen people, and by the end of the day, we had about 2,000 people that had been involved in the process, and their fingerprints were somewhere on it, endorsed by all 23 suburban school districts. 7-year 1 penny sales tax. I told the school district, I said, you have no credibility with the voters, so it's like we're signing your note, and so we're going to control that money. Meaning we're going to control all of our money, and in fact, your $180 million in bond issue money, you're going to give it to the city, and we're going to hold it and spend it because we don't trust you to do it right. And the school board chairman, he was a guy I'd recruited, he's CEO of Sonic Drive-Ins, and he said, well, our board doesn't like you to talk that way. I said, well, it's either going to be that way or I'm walking out that door, and if I walk out that door, this deal's over. He said, I think we need a break. And we took a break, and he came back and agreed to it. So the city has handled all the money. It's been governed by a trust of business leaders that know what they're doing. And last project will start in a few months. It's a downtown charter elementary school. I'm the chairman of that board. So we still have a lot to do on schools, but we're making progress. And it's been done without any controversy or mishandling of funds. 3 new high schools. Then Mayor Cornett has led with MAPS 3. MAPS 3 is a new convention center. It's a new downtown park, beginning of a transit system, improvements on the river, and other improvements around the city. That's about almost an $800 million effort over almost 8 years sales tax. That is just getting started. None of those projects have opened yet. Again, lessons from MAPS. You have to have a pressing need and address it. People from Tulsa. Tulsa has always been the more refined, urbane city in Oklahoma. In fact, the mayor of Tulsa told me one time, he said, you know, from my days in the cradle, I was told to look down my nose at that dusty cow town down the turnpike. They're not looking down their nose anymore. But Tulsa said, why didn't we do MAPS? Why did you do MAPS and we didn't? And I said, well, you've never been as desperate as we were in 1993. And if you had been, you never would have admitted it. So you have to address the pressing need. You've got to have unity among your leadership. I'll just tell you a brief story. Clay Bennett is the managing partner of the Thunder. After I left the mayor's office, Mayor Cornett got elected. And there came a time when he was thinking about running for Congress and running for mayor more or less at the same time. He was going to get reelected as mayor and then run for Congress a couple of months later. I just tell you that deeply offended me. You know, I'm a guy I want what's best for the city, and if you want to run for Congress, go run for Congress, but don't run for mayor. And so I was thinking about running against him. And one day Clay Bennett comes to me and he says, don't do this. And I could tell it's like he hadn't slept all night thinking about it, you know. And he said, I want to tell you why. He said, number one, you're not going to beat him. Well, I could argue that, but that's what he said. Number two, it's not best for your boys. Your boys right now can do what they want, but if you're mayor, they can't. But number three, if you do this, people are going to have to choose sides, and it's going to tear our city apart. He said, for a long time now, we've been unified. If you do this, it'll make enemies that will last generations. And folks, and I didn't run, but folks, we got to decide if we want to move our city forward or if we want to be right. And there comes a time when unity is more important than being right. And I don't know anything in Wichita. I don't know. I'm not speaking to anyone in particular because I don't know. But I can just tell you, you're going to find reason to have conflict with the mayor. You're going to find reasons to have conflict with the chamber leadership or the downtown development leadership. Plenty of things to disagree about. But you know what? We're a family. In our city, we're a family. In your city, you're a family. And in family, it's more important to be unified than it is to be right. And if you do get a lack of unity, it lasts for a long time in a family, doesn't it? So, you got to have unity. You've got to have a leader that gets out front and that people follow. You've got to have a strategic focus so that you try to meet as many needs as you can, but it doesn't become a grab bag where there's something for everybody. And then you've got to deliver what you promise. And our city today is a different city than it was 20 years ago. And your city, 20 years from now, as good as things are right now, your city is going to be a different city than it is today. But let me just tell you one closing illustration. If you want a fruit tree in your yard, when do you have to think about that? How long before you want the fruit do you have to plant a seed? About 5 years. A seed or a seedling, about 5 years. If you want fruit, then you should have thought of that 5 years ago. It takes that long for a tree to become established and to get to work and bear fruit. In cities, I think that maturation period is probably 10 to 20 years. And so today, everybody's beating their trail to Oklahoma City. I mean, literally, we have lots and lots of cities come to Oklahoma City every year to look at what we're doing. And quite frankly, we're kind of pleased that they come. I mean, we're still kind of honored by that. We're the flavor of the month right now. We will continue to be flavor of the month as long as we continue to do the right things and deliver. If we ever get to thinking, oh, we're really good, start squabbling, start doing the wrong stuff, fail to deliver, then they'll throw us on the ash heap just like everything else. But it takes time. I just tell you, I came up a few weeks ago and spent a day here just to get my feet on the ground here. I believe you're doing a lot of the right stuff. You're doing some stuff better than we're doing it. You're doing a better job with downtown housing relative to the size of your market than we're doing. You're putting the good bones in place. Blair last night, I took him out to the river. He was very impressed with your keeper of the flame. Anyway, the pedestrian bridge. He got out of the car and started taking pictures, So, I'm not saying you're doing everything right, I don't know, but you're doing some stuff right. Keep doing what you're doing right, and where you need to make an adjustment, do that. The folks that did your master plan, Goody Clancy, we did a national search in our private development company for a project we're working on in Oklahoma City several years ago and hired Goody Clancy to do our master plan. The lady that did the housing study for you, Lori Volk, we've hired twice on developments that our private company is doing. She is outstanding. So you're working with good people. You have a good structure in place. Quite frankly, take a moment out, pat yourself on the back about the stuff you're doing right. Now, let's get back to work. Great to be with you. Thank you.
I know with this group, there's probably a couple of burning questions, and we have a few minutes, and the mayor has agreed to field a couple questions. So we have some mics. If you'll raise your hand, the mayor will be able to. Mr. Warren, I can see with
Bill, the answer is no.
Is your Chamber of Commerce independent from the city government? Do they take funds from the city and county government?
Okay. The question is the Chamber independent, or do they take funds from city and county government? Our chamber is, I'll say this about our chamber, and for about 8 years I was vice chairman of the chamber, just until about a year ago. And by the way, I was vice chairman for aviation and aerospace, which you guys know something about. And do you know that we have more aviation and aerospace jobs in Oklahoma City than we have energy jobs? That'll surprise you. It's our largest industry. If the Chamber Executive Committee gathers in Oklahoma City, it is the top business leaders in town. And so, if I can put it this way, it's Charlie Chandler, not his number 2 guy or number 3 guy, from Devon and from Chesapeake and so on. The operating funds for the Chamber come from the membership and various fundraising things they do. They do contract with the city and with the county for specific economic development related functions. And so our city and our county have no economic development function in-house. They contract with the Chamber for those functions. But I'll just tell you, the Chamber has led in every initiative in Oklahoma City in our history. The Chamber is this, if you want to put your finger on the nerve center of what's driving Oklahoma City, it's the Chamber. Not dependent. They contract for certain functions, but not their operation.
Other questions?
Thank you, Mayor. MAPS 3, you said that's been approved by the voters in Oklahoma City. What was the percentage of approval on that?
MAPS 3, question is what was the percentage of approval on MAPS 3? MAPS 1 was 54%, MAPS 2 was about 61, MAPS for kids. MAPS 3 was, I think, back about 54, wasn't it, Blair? 54. It was passed in 2009, and it had organized opposition by the Police and Firefighters Union. It was the first MAPS project that had organized opposition. We planned to spend, the Chamber raises the money for the campaigns, we planned to spend about $800,000 on that campaign, and we raised $1.8 million and just carpet bombed the opposition and got it done. But it, you know, it's tougher. MAPS 3 is tougher because we're not as hungry as we used to be. Our level of satisfaction with ourselves is quite a bit higher, and so we're not as needy, and it's harder to think I want to pay a tax. And so it's much. Mayor Cornett's challenge is much greater than Mayor Norrick's or mine because, you know, when things are so bad, you're almost, I mean, if you can't get a date, you're happy for almost any girl, you know. And so, okay, any more questions? I would hate to end with that comment. Okay, yeah. Okay, the question, the Skirvin, I made the statement that it would not have happened without public participation. How did we come to that determination? That's a great question. I recruited a committee of citizens and asked them to study the Skirvin and determine several things. Number one, does it need to be redeveloped? Or should we just tear it down? If it needs to be redeveloped, is that something the public has an interest in? And third, if it is legitimate for the public to have an interest in that, quantify that. I recruited a guy named David Rainbolt, who's the chairman of Bank First, one of our largest banks, and he said, well, I just want to know, what if we tell you no? I said, you just tell me whatever, no preconceived notion, you tell me whatever you want to tell me. They came back and they said, yes, there's a public interest. Yes, the public should invest money, and we believe it's between $7 and $12 million. And so that took time, but when you're trying to move public perception, you have to give the public time for that idea to percolate and that achieve that purpose. By the way, I was going to call it the Skirvin Issues Committee, and my wife said, no, call it the Skirvin Solutions Committee, and so that's what we called it. I just, yes, ma'am, and I followed those orders. And so now I had the public saying, yes, we should do this, and yes, spend $7 to $12 million, but don't tax us. And we spent 22 and didn't tax them. And everyone's thrilled. Great to be with you. Thank you.
Mayor Humphreys, thank you on behalf of this community for coming up to Wichita. We've enjoyed you being here in Blair and the rest of the day, and Appreciate you coming up a few weeks ago. I think that we're developing a relationship here that is going to be ongoing after today as we continue to move forward in our city. Thank you again for coming out today on behalf of our board. We appreciate your partnership. We appreciate you coming out today. We want to thank Dr. Eisner and Michael Ramsey again today for allowing this venue. You're in it first, so let's give them another round of applause. Please don't hurry off. You've got a little bit more time here if you'd like. We've got plenty of food, actually cookies, I believe, over here, so help yourself. Thank you again for coming out today.